Welcome back. Welcome to day 2 of the Stress Dad to Calm Dad, the Lunch and Learn sessions. Today we talk about workload. Some of you are like, at last, come on, tell me, how can I manage all this stuff in front of me, this massive, overwhelming to-do list that I've got? Tell me, how can I do it better? It's just the holy grail. Hopefully, though, you can see that from yesterday, from the last session where we talked about mindset, that it's so important to get that shift right to help us then approach our workload in a more effective, more efficient, more productive way, a more positive way, both for the business but also for us. All of a sudden now we're looking at work saying, well, my role is to understand everything that's in front of me so that I can make an informed decision about what I focus on. Great. And what I focus on needs to be the right thing at the right time for the right reasons in the right way. Okay, right. Just that takes out all this kind of overwhelm of there's 101 things to do. You're automatically more clear, more focused. But what you obviously need to do in order to then take this to the next step, okay, well, I need to understand it better. So I need to ask questions. I need to find out what the right thing at the right time for the right reasons in the right way is. So I need to ask questions. And for some of you, I'm sure you do ask questions. You might be going, well, I got a pretty good handle on this. And that's cool. Great. Keep doing that. And hopefully this session will cement that and maybe give you some extra questions to ask. Some of you maybe don't ask any questions. Maybe you're stuck in the saying yes to everything or feeling like you've got to do it all. We talked about that in the last session. But hopefully we've kind of put that one to bed now. It's like, well, actually, no, I'm going to shift over here. That feels better, but I still don't know how I'm going to do it. But that's okay. That's what we're going to cover today. So it is about these questions that we ask. And sometimes it's about asking better quality questions, because the better quality questions you ask, the better quality answers you're going to get back. And that means the better quality informed decision you're going to be able to make. Remember I said, this isn't about managing everything or putting a sticky plaster over things. This is about being the leader. This is leadership. And we have to be able to go, that's what we focus on, not I don't know. That's what overwhelms us. That's what gets us stressed. So this is all about getting more control, taking control of it, getting more focus, getting clearer about what it is and where we're going. And this whole thing actually reminds me of a story that one of my mentors told me. And I don't need to name drop, but they work with the most successful people on the planet. And they also do some work with military in America, and specifically became very friendly and helped out a general, a very highly regarded and decorated general in the military. And there's this story where the military had to make a decision. They had to make a decision, and there was 2 ways it could go. And both options had merit. Both options had downside, but both they stacked up. But they were very different, and they obviously had very different supporters. And you can imagine. I mean, I came from financial services, right? So everything had to be signed off within a T and a dot in the I's, and you had to have pre-approval meetings for the pre-approval meeting, and then the post pre-approval meeting, and before it ever got towards the board. So it's similar in the military, and they'd spent 6 months trawling over this decision, and they kept going to these meetings, they kept going to these conferences, they kept asking more questions, which is a great thing to do, asking for more validation, more evidence, and they did all of that, but they still couldn't make a decision. And the general came in after 6 months. He just came in and he went, that's the decision, let's go and implement it. And sure enough, they did. And my mentor that was working with him at the time, what he was trying to do was understand how did leaders in these high positions make their decisions? How do they do that? What information are they looking for? What are the patterns? And so he asked him, what was the extra information that you got that helped you make that decision? And he said, there was no extra information. It was the same information that we've had for weeks, months. I just went in and made the decision that needed to be made, which was, we do that one with absolute confidence. He said, but surely there must be extra information. No. It was one or two. Both have got merit. We just had to decide, boom, that one. Because otherwise we'd be stuck in another 6 months of figuring this out. He said, we have already burnt money, resources, time, energy. We've wasted that. We need to take action. Because if we're taking action, then we're learning from it. We're getting some result. Even if it's not the result that we ultimately wanted, we're still getting results. We're still getting learning. If we need to adapt or refine things, we can do that on the way. But we can't do that whilst we're not doing anything. And so why this reminded me of this story is that as leaders, as people that are trying to take control of their workload and their situation, we have to be able to make decisions. And this applies outside of work too. We have to go in with confidence and go, this. Now, for most of the stuff that we've got on our list, okay, when we start asking the questions, it will become obvious which ones we need to focus more time on. But on the occasion, say like 1 out of 10 times, there might be something that, they kind of all stack up a little bit. They are pretty similar. In that moment, if you can't decide, you just go, make the decision like the general did. Because the danger is otherwise, if you've got, like, for example, 2 things, it might be more than 2 things in front of you, and you go, I'm not quite sure, they both stack up. And people do this in project management land all the time. If you don't, you're more likely to put it to one side and then go focus on this other thing over here, which is probably easier or you'll feel more comfortable with. So this stuff gets delayed. Like the general said, we can still, not be any further forward in 6 months' time. But it might be the thing that's really important. It's the thing that's going to make the biggest impact. In those moments, you've got to make a decision. You just choose, because otherwise you won't do it. Or, almost even worse, you'll dibble and dabble. You won't give it the effort. You won't get the results you want. It takes you far longer to get anything done. And actually you'll fall out of love with it because you're just trying to do it all at the same time and make the decision. This is leadership. This is how you reduce the overwhelm and the stress. This is how we do it. So, and what I'm going to go through is I'm going to go through 3 powerful questions, the most powerful questions you can go through. And it's not just me saying, making this stuff up, right? Through my experience, my last 25 years of experience of this, and what I've then learned from the most successful high performers in the world, I put it all together and go, well, what questions are we asking? What to make sure that we're focusing on those right things? And so that's what I want to go through today. But it's really important for us to set this tone to go, well, what does it mean? How do we focus our time? Some of this is mindset again. It's just an extension of where we've been. It's a natural journey. There is method in my madness. There's a flow to this. Let me just use this analogy, which might resonate. Our to-do list. And by the way, if you've got loads of things, it's just a list, right? It's not a to-do list. I'm going to come on to that in a minute, what really is a to-do list. The chances are you've got a work list. You remember my work list? 800 things in a spreadsheet. Heart attack in a spreadsheet. Not a to-do list. Not by any stretch of the imagination was that a to-do list. It was a very organized work list, but completely overwhelming and unmanageable. But this is kind of what it can feel like, right? It can feel like a puzzle. Now this is a 500-piece Star Wars puzzle. I'm a bit of a nerd, so that's how it rolls. Hopefully you haven't got 500 pieces on your work list. Still 300 short on mine, but it's not a competition. But this is what our list can look like, right? It's like a whole bunch of stuff. Some of these things are turned over, so we can't really see them or see the benefit or know what it's all about. Some of them are clear, and it's going, okay. And some of them we like, and sometimes we're attracted to, and sometimes we're not. Some look a little bit like, I'm not sure, but some really stand out. This is what our list looks like, right? But where do you start? How the heck are you supposed to, as it is in the box like this, how on earth can you do anything with that? But, what we've got to do is, that first step is we've got to pay attention to the pieces. Because again, remember that very simple framework of, well, can I do it? Is it me that needs to do it? And when can I do it? Well, we need to kind of understand our pieces better in order to make that decision. So what do you do with a puzzle? What do you do with a puzzle? You lay out all the pieces. The first step, you lay out all the pieces so you can see them. This is the same for your work list. Now, I will come on to, there's a danger with it, but the first thing is get it out of your head. If you've got it all going around in your head, it doesn't matter how much of a great memory you've got. When we start getting stressed and overwhelmed, we forget things. Get it on paper, get it on your computer, get it on your phone, however you want to do it, but get it out of your head and get it clear. And I love Post-its, right? So it's like Post-its everywhere, but really you need to kind of bring it together so you can see it all. And then once you can see it, you can start adding information to these things when you're asking the questions. All right, okay. And then you can start reordering these things. You can go, oh, okay, this is more important. Oh, well, this thing, well, I don't even know what that's all about. This is what we need to do. We need to understand our pieces better, but we need to see them all first. Now, there is a caveat to this, because whilst that starts to give us some clarity and focus, it doesn't give us all of it because we haven't asked all the questions yet, but it does give us a little bit more clarity. We can see it at least. There is a trap that some of us can get caught into, and I did, and I know many other people do, whereas we record everything and then try to keep that up to date. We try to keep track of that, and that's what I was doing with my 800 things. The trouble with that is it becomes a full-time job to manage that. A full-time job to update everything and keep everything up to date and change things around. And that's not a good use of your time. You can spend more time actually updating your list than you are actually making a difference. And you're here to make a difference. You're here to make an impact. So it's not about recording everything, but the first, and whether it's 5 things, 10 things, 20 things you've got, the first step is just get it all out, and then we can do something with it. And we can really narrow it down, because a to-do list is 3 things in my view. And it's not just my view, there's research and science behind it. It's the power of 3. Like every day go, right, what are the 3 most important things I need to get done today? Get that clarity and get it done. And you can apply this to, if you're in business, you go, well, if I asked any of you, what's your 3, what are 3 things you want to get out of next year? So 2022, what is it you want to do? Next year, what are the 3 things you want to achieve in your business or, professionally? And you may or may not have an answer to that. And if you don't have an answer, then, maybe we can have a chat about that, get you clear. But what is it that you want to do? And then you might work that back to a 90-day plan and go, right, in order for me to achieve those 3 things, I need to then focus on these 3 things over my 90 days to get that. And you break that down into your monthly plan, your weekly plan, your daily plan. So you know that what you're doing is making a difference. It's making progress towards the goals, the aims, the objectives of your business, your department, your division, the project, your personal goals. You make sure it's aligned. And this is really important that you understand that bigger picture, because otherwise you could be doing all this stuff over here, but it's not making the impact that you need. And if you're not getting the results, it's going to reflect on you. It reflects, on what you're achieving. And if you're in business, if you're in the corporate world, then that's going to come out in performance management. If it's your own business, then that's going to hit your bottom line. So it's really important to get this. And we're talking about workload, but there's a huge philosophy behind this as to why it's so important to get more focused, and one of the things about having 3 things is at least you can get a sense of satisfaction. At the end of the day, you can review manageably 3 things. You can go, did I make progress towards those things, or did I complete those things? Oh yeah, I did. Well done, brilliant. No external validation required. You set out to do something, nailed it, boom, done it. The thing with a long list is you could have the best day in the world. You could knock 50 things off of your list. Amazing. But if at the end of the day you then look at your list and you go, but I've still got 750 things on the list, it's like so demoralizing. There's no sense of achievement. You might have worked your butt off, done so many things, but the huge weight of that list takes all the achievement, all the joy out of it. You just feel like you're not good enough. You feel like no matter how long and how hard you work, talked about that, right? It's not enough. And we've also said that it's a never-ending list, right? So it might be 750 things at the end of today, but tomorrow it could be back up to 800. So you need to, part of this and part of success tools and part of leadership is being able to get a sense of achievement for what you're doing. But you need to focus and be clear on it in the first place. Otherwise it just doesn't work. So another reason why this is so important, and hopefully it's just it's shifting things in you to go, okay, this isn't just about managing my work. There's something more about this, and it's going to make me feel a heck of a lot better. It's going to make me improve my confidence, the sense of control that I've got, the clarity, the purpose, the focus. If I can do that at work, then I'm not going to be so stressed and overwhelmed. Well, that's got to pay dividends outside of work as well. Why are we here? To stress less and that more. So, where do we take this? We want to ask the 3 most powerful questions we can ask of everything. I'm talking tasks, I'm talking meetings, and you can even use it outside of work in terms of what you're spending your time and your energy doing or who it's with. Really important. They're so powerful. But let me just first off tell you the question not to start with. And this applies to anything in life. Do not start with how. How am I going to do this? Okay, don't start with how. I'll give you a real simple example. I want to get fitter. Right, and then you go, how am I going to do that? Okay, well, I work these hours and I don't get home until this time. And I do want to spend some time with the family. And so I have to work and I don't really want to do that. And actually in the evenings, I feel a bit exhausted. So that's really not probably the best time to do it. So, can I do it at lunchtime? Or how's that going to work? No, I probably haven't got time to do that, have a shower and no, I haven't got. So how am I going to do it at the weekends? How's that going to work? Because I want to spend time with the family and I've got these other things and I just want to chill out, to be honest. The last thing I want to do is be working out. So how am I going to do it? Before you know it, you will talk yourself out of anything. You've certainly just talked yourself out of getting fit. So many people do this. They start with something comes in, they go, right, how can I do this? How are we going to go about this? It's so the wrong question to ask to start with, because you can easily talk yourself out of things. I mean, the first question to ask, and it's not one of our 3 powerful ones, bonus question, is what? So it's kind of a foundation level of, what it is in front of you. Okay, so if you've got a list of stuff in front of you, you at least know what those things are, and you know what the meetings are that are in your diary. So please, if you don't know what, then you need to go and get some information about what. But I'm sure that you do, right? So at least we know what it is that's on our plate. We might not have all the detail yet, but we know what it is. Here's the 3 questions to ask, the 3 most powerful questions you can ask of anything, okay, to get you the clarity and the focus, and to stop and take that massive list and go, right, what are my top 3 things? And what this is really going to give you is your top 1 thing, and then slot behind that the other 2. First question, and it is a question that children are great at. It's one of their favorite questions. Can you guess what it is? Why? It's not just children, right? This is the big question in life. I'm a huge fan of the why question in terms of purpose. In order for us to grow, in order for us to do better, be better, have an impact, we've got to have a purpose behind it. We've got to know a why. Why is so important. It matters to us. We need to know that it means something, that it's going to make a difference, that it makes sense to us. And the more it makes sense to us personally in terms of that drive and that outcome, then it's going to make, we're more likely to put all our energy behind it. So we need to understand why. And, part of this is, let me give you a really simple example, right? There's a big difference between, right, I need this report and these figures. The why being, because we're having a team meeting next Friday, and if we've got time, we're going to review it and ask for some questions. See if anyone's got any questions, right? There is a big difference between that and, at 9 o'clock on Monday, the CEO is flying over from Switzerland and he wasn't impressed by our last quarter's figures. So he's coming in to review the last quarter. And if we haven't got this up together and if it's not given the right story, then he wants to make changes to the company, the division, the department. He wants to restructure things. Oh, hello. There is a huge difference between that CEO coming in, flying in from Switzerland on Monday morning, and then a meeting where we might get round to it. That focuses the mind. But unless you've asked why, you might not know it. And you might go, oh, Martin, come on. If it was that big a deal, we'd know. I spent 20 years in the corporate world, financial services. Trust me, some of this stuff is not clear. What people do is they silo tasks, especially if you're working the corporate specifically. But also be wary of this if you're working in your own business. Make sure people know the big picture. People silo the tasks. They don't know what it's for. And because they then don't ask, they don't know where to prioritize. Now, they might just drop everything, or they might not. I'm going to come on to the next question in a minute, which will pick some of this stuff up. But you've got to know why. Don't assume you know why. Don't assume somebody's going to tell you if it's really important because the CEO's flying in. You've got to ask the question. Be the leader. Your role is to understand things better. Ask why. There's a great book called Start With Why by Simon Sinek. He's one of the top leadership coaches in the world, an amazing trainer, and his whole thing, he's built his profession around it, his career around it is why. It's a great book. I'll share the link with you so that you can see it. But really highly recommend it. Highly recommend seeing him in his talks. He's got lots of YouTube stuff that's out there. Really engaging, really insightful guy, really down to earth guy as well. So you've got to make sure that it makes sense. But let me just give you just an extra bit here. You also need to understand what the objectives, the goals, the aims are that you're looking for. And this could be your department, your division, your company, or yours personally. You've got to kind of marry up the why. So why is this so important? It might be a very independent why, and it's important. But also, how does this relate to the aims, the objectives of the department, the company, or your own personal objectives? You need to understand how it relates, and you've got to understand why. So you need to understand that bigger picture. That's what being a leader is all about. Have that in mind. You can easily get distracted by these tasks that aren't contributing to that, or they contribute this much, whereas the thing that you need to be concentrating on could contribute this much. But somehow, because you've not asked the questions, because we've got a bit overwhelmed with things, we focus over here rather than over there. So the first question is why. Second question to ask of anything in front of you is, what is the consequence of this not getting done? What's the consequence of this not getting done? Now, the chances are, we're business people here, so we're not in the services or healthcare. So somebody's life is not in our hands. This is not life and death. If it is, it's different, right? That focuses your mind. But sometimes we work so hard and put ourselves out there, to the detriment of our health and our family, as if somebody's life was on the line. Well, you know what? Technically, it is ours. When we're looking at tasks and work, understand the consequence of it not getting done. Now, don't misread me here. Don't make this personal. We talked about this in the last session. Don't make this personal. What's the consequence of me not doing this? Because it might not necessarily have to be you that does it. This is not a capability thing. This is, what's the consequence of the task, the thing, the meeting? What's the consequence of me not being at that meeting? What's the consequence of this thing not getting done, or that meeting not happening? Understand it. There is a huge difference. There's a huge consequence difference between that report not being ready for the team meeting next Friday, and the report not being ready for 9 o'clock for the CEO that's coming over to Switzerland, the consequence is huge, dramatic. But again, don't assume that somebody's going to tell you this. You've got to ask the questions. What's the consequence? There's a big difference between, well, actually, I could do it next week, and if I don't get it done by Friday, then we're going to be in for a regulatory fine of £5 million. Again, there's a huge difference in consequence, but this question just doesn't get asked enough. But it can really focus the mind and really churn out, what is really important and urgent. In a world where everything seems urgent and important, you start asking these questions, well, you're suddenly going to get to what really matters. And what this also does, especially between why and consequences, it starts to unravel false deadlines. False deadlines was one of my pet hates in corporate. You know what it's like, it's 5 o'clock. Somebody's coming over in a mad panic. Oh, I need this done by 9 o'clock tomorrow. You then bust a gut doing it because you haven't asked the questions. And, you're just like in that yes mode. You bust a gut. It's a late night. You don't see your family. You're absolutely exhausted. You rock up following day. Oh, I got it done. You're absolutely like hanging. Only for 9 o'clock to come and go. And it wasn't really required for then. It was required for later on in the day or maybe later in the week. Man, this happened way too many times in my corporate life. And there's nothing that kind of destroys that respect and that trust quicker than giving somebody a false deadline that really busts a gut. So whether you're in control of your own workload because you own your own business, or whether you work in the corporate, be aware of the false deadlines you even give yourself. If you unless it's a client-led thing, the deadlines are the timescales in your hands. So this can really wheedle out those things that can add to that frustration, that stress, and that overwhelm. It's the second question. The first question was why. Second question was the consequence. Third question. And, I said, I'm a huge fan of why, right? In terms of not just this, but in life, in terms of life coaching and purpose and living the most extraordinary life. It's huge in terms of driving our development, our growth. But when it comes to workload, my favorite question, and I think is the most powerful question of them all, is this third one. And that is, when you've got things in front of you, what is going to make the biggest difference? What's going to make the biggest difference? It's huge. Now, on the rare occasion, like we said with the general, there's like, okay, it's kind of even, right, well, just make the choice. But generally speaking, with this will start wheeling things out, even without those other two questions. But please do ask those other ones as well. They work as a great power of three. But biggest difference. Again, the CEO team meeting. What's going to make the biggest difference? Well, I think we might need to focus our time on the stuff for the CEO, right? And this comes back to is your role at work. We've said this to understand everything and make those informed decisions. Right thing, right time, right reasons, right way. Your role at work, if I wanted to give you a secondary role, but maybe it is the most important role, is to make the biggest difference. If you are employed by somebody else, you are not employed to make a little difference. You are employed to drive the company forward as well as you possibly can, to make the biggest difference. If you are in business for yourself, with yourself, if you own your own business, it is to make the biggest impact you can out there with your skills, your resources, your experience. You are already, everyone, you're already at the table. You haven't got anything to prove. A lot of people, we get caught up in that. I've got to prove myself and we then work harder and longer. We've sorted that one, right? It's not about working hard and longer. It's about making the biggest difference. And I've got to focus on the right things that are going to make the biggest difference. There's a great thing, another tool, understand your $1 tasks, your $100 tasks, your $1,000 tasks. so many of us, because sometimes they're the comfortable things or the things that we just come more naturally to us. We focus on them. Maybe they're $1 tasks or $100 tasks. But there's this thing over here that maybe it feels a bit more awkward, or it's a bit more challenging. It's a bit more uncomfortable. I do this with like people that are in sales, for example, sometimes making phone calls, or they own their own business, making those phone calls to people, to prospective people, having discovery calls. The phone call or the contact, even though they might be the most personable person on the planet, that just feels that they haven't quite got the experience and the skills and the knowledge yet to make that really comfortable, and therefore they put it off. But it's the thing that can make the biggest difference. If you haven't got clients, then you haven't got a business. But they go, oh, well, I'll just do this social media over here, or I'll just tweak my website, or I'll just look at my figures, or I'll just look at this. It's like, get on the phone, or look at the list and contact people, proactively contact people. It's going to make the biggest difference, to your bottom line, right? If you own your own business, you need income, you need clients. What's going to make the biggest difference to do that? Doing some of this stuff, $1 task over here, or going for it with a $1,000 task, or partnerships, or whatever it might be. And it's the same if you work in corporate. What's going to make the biggest difference to the project is what we came, I talked about in the first question. Understand the aims, the objectives of the project, the division, the department, you, the company. Understand where it's going, what does it want, and make sure you're aligned. What's going to make the biggest difference to that goal? Because you will, your credibility, your professionalism, your rewards, your performance management, everything about that will be dictated by, do you make the biggest difference? And it's not about working harder and longer and doing 800 things. You could do 800 $1 tasks. You need to make the biggest difference, but you need to understand, you need to assess it, get the information, ask the questions, and then make the assessment. What's going to make the biggest difference right now? Otherwise, what we do is we get stuck in the familiar. We get stuck with the stuff that we're comfortable with. And yes, admittedly, right? We might be attracted to this little piece here. It's Grogu. Look at him. Brilliant. It stands out a mile. It's like, oh, I really start with that piece, right? But maybe, just maybe, we ask some questions and we go, well, actually, this piece here is the most important thing. It doesn't look sexy. It looks a bit awkward, and it's like, well, I'm not sure. But what we've done, we've asked the questions, and we soon discover that, well, this is the second most important thing to do. Oh, that doesn't look too sexy either. But look, I put them together. Oh, and look, this one. Oh, this one doesn't look too sexy either. I put them together all of a sudden, though. I got momentum. I've got progress. This is what it's like, bringing it back to your puzzle pieces. It's about focusing on the right thing, not getting distracted. Focus on the things with the biggest why, the thing with the biggest consequence if it doesn't get done, the thing that's going to make the biggest difference. You've now got a framework, a very simple framework to give you momentum, a simple system to give you clarity and focus. And you can assess everything with this, work tasks and meetings, and also outside. You can even apply it at the end of the day. If you're tempted to work late, ask yourself these questions. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this and not spending time with my family? Why is this so important that I get this done? You start, well, what's the consequence of me not doing this? Well, actually, there isn't. I just pick it up tomorrow. Yeah, I've got one more thing to do tomorrow, but actually, if this is the most important thing, it's the thing that I need to focus on. What's the consequence of me not being with my family? Well, actually, you know what? I need downtime. I'm exhausted. I've worked. I've made progress today. I've done my dues. What's going to make the biggest difference to me personally and to them? Well, actually, to spend time with them, because the consequence might be that I don't have my meal with them. I miss bedtime. I miss story time. I miss some downtime with my wife without the kids. Why are you doing it? What's the consequence? You go, what's going to make the biggest difference to me right now? Actually, the biggest difference, I need to be with my family. Use it in different ways to help you focus what you're doing. When you start getting more deliberate and intentional about your time and what you're doing with it, your quality of your life will improve beyond what you can imagine. Your stress and your overwhelm is certainly going to reduce. So apply it. So this, my friends, this was what I wanted to cover today. And we've covered a lot, but obviously the 3 questions are really clear. Why? Consequence, biggest difference. But there was a lot there about looking beyond that and the mindset for it, the approach, why it's so important. to really anchor these things in, this approach in, and why it really links to our mindset on understanding everything, doing the right thing for the right reasons, at the right time, in the right way. All of this then leads to asking better quality questions. Now we've got some clarity. Now we've got some focus. Amazing, right? Now we feel a better sense of control, more confidence. We've got, a sense of achievement on a regular basis rather than just overwhelm. But we've got to do this on a regular basis. Remember, this isn't just some one-off. We've got to apply this. This is our new shift. Apply this. You're gonna just feel all those things on a regular basis rather than stress, overwhelm, frustration, and exhaustion. So this is what it's all about. And we've already said, without taking action, we can learn, but if we don't take action, nothing changes. So go and apply these 3 questions. This afternoon, tomorrow morning, go and look at your work list. Right? So I bet it is a work list rather than a to-do list. And start applying these questions, and then just see what insights you get. It might be validation that I'm on track. Great, wonderful, keep going. But it might be, actually, I do default to this thing, and this thing does take me a long time, chunk out of my day or my week, and actually, this is going to be the thing that makes the biggest difference. And the consequence of me not doing this is actually, this, and this. And so actually, I do need to slightly shift. So go and apply the questions and then figure out what the shift is and document it. Really live it, really understand this so that it then embeds and you go, right, I'm going to do this more because it's given me a benefit. It's given me a focus. So go do that and join me. Join me tomorrow for the next session, day 3 of the Stress Dad to Calm Dad Lunch and Learn sessions. Look, we've got the mindset. We know how to approach our work now. So what's the next natural thing? It's time. How are we going to focus our time to make sure that we're doing those things that are most important, that's going to make the biggest difference? How do we do that? So tomorrow we're going to myth bust. Next session, we're going to myth bust the biggest myth that I love to bust. All right, we're going to have some fun with it, but it's going to help you get things done in less time, especially with our new focus. I'm also going to throw in 2 really simple things so we can start spending more time with our family, because this is all about stress less and dad more. Thanks for joining me today. Thank you for the live viewers. Thank you for the replayers. I can't wait for tomorrow. Join me again, same time, same place, and I'll see you tomorrow.